I would like to discuss the myth of the model minority, which is a positive stereotype that has very harmful effects on the Asian community and the world. The myth states that all Asians are doing well during the pandemic. Everyone's doing well financially, but that is far from true. There are a lot of Asians who are restaurant workers, laborers, have illnesses, or are old, who are suffering just like every other community. There's also the myth that all Asians are good in math and science, and they all become successful PhDs, doctors, presidents of organizations, but we know that's not always true. There are a lot that are very successful, but there are a lot who go into the arts and are not that successful, or suffering, they're out of work. And also it promotes the myth that a lot of us are not put into positions of leadership in academia, as professors, and it's kind of held our community down, that people believe that they're this way, and I think sometimes they don't want our leadership. So the myth of the model minority is something I would like for each of us to discuss. So maybe Julie, or let's start with Andrew, because I think Andrew has been very outspoken with the myth of the model minority. Why don't you tell us what you think about this?
I think the myth of the model minority really ignores the racism that has existed historically in the United States, you know, from the Chinese Exclusion Act to the Japanese American internment to, you know, the COVID-19 pandemic, how people were very easily swayed to, you know, turn against Asian Americans in our country and really really scapegoat us. And what the biggest problem, I believe, is it really alienates our own communities from each other, and with other communities of color. You know, it alienates us and separates us rather than brings us together. And I think that's a really big problem that, you know, people don't realize is happening in this country.
I think from my perspective, the biggest thing is that I really hope what comes out of everything that the Asian community is going through right now is that more Asian Americans vote, more Asian Americans get involved in government, because ultimately at the end of the day, those are the people that make the changes and have the ability to change legislation and to put forth different propositions and laws. And I think that the more our communities get involved, the better off we'll be in the long run.
Before we go to Emma to discuss the myth of the model minority, I do want to say that Bruce Lee 30 for 30 really highlighted the fact that after World War II, the Japanese American internment camps, the Korean War, the Vietnamese War, people often think that all Asians are the same, all Chinese are the same, all Japanese, all Vietnamese, but we're a very diverse group, Indian, Southeast Asian, but you know, the Korean War, the Vietnamese War have created after effects of violence and prejudice against Vietnamese, other groups. So Emma, do you have any thoughts that you'd like to discuss with the myth of the model minority from a Vietnamese American perspective?
I've had very personal experiences with it, where I've experienced a lot of prejudice myself, and my mother has experienced a lot of prejudice. And I think we're privileged enough to be considered average or middle to high income class, but you know, even with that, like my mom goes to the grocery store and she receives a lot of Asian hate comments, or she won't receive certain services because the cashier may be a little bit racist to her. And so it's like even when you look at another Asian individual and you may have this perception that like, oh, they're Asian, they're doing fine, like they look fine, blah blah. It's very different how we experience things, and this myth is harmful in that it creates perception that even if socioeconomically or even if academically we're doing okay, which is a myth in and of itself. Outside of that, everybody's experiences are different and personalized and customized to how they live their life. So I think that's the biggest harm of this myth, and just recognizing that is something that needs to be done.
Like I said before, it's raining. I'm really proud of my SUNY Optometry students. We're going to lead the way. I believe the theme is Asians for Others. As I mentioned before, I believe in future preferences. that despite all the suffering we're having, that tomorrow will be better than today. We have to make that happen, and that we all have an ethical and moral responsibility to make the world a better place. So Asians for others, we're here in Manhattan, Chinatown, and have a great day, everybody.